is 1% he's going to hang in there. His percentage of winning this series looks low, but guaranteed Beastie is going to hang in there as we go into game number 3.
Indeed, into Golden Heights we go. This was a home map that was selected by Vortix, but Beastie actually chose to play this one, with the loser always being the one selecting the upcoming map. So Beastie feels like he's more confident playing on the home map of Vortix than to play on his second home map, which would have been Dry Arabia.
Yeah, Dry Arabia, I think like Dry Arabia he probably wants to keep till last, because right now, if you go into Dry Arabia, not that many civs have been picked, right? So there's still a lot unknown. You don't want to run into Dry Arabia and just get counterpicked, right? I think Dry Arabia being such a flexible map, at this stage compared to, say, Mongolian Heights, or if you want to go Holy Island, you know, when you look at the fact that 2 bans on each side plus 2 civs picked, you could quite easily say with 90% certainty what your opponent's going to pick instead. But in Dry Arabia, honestly, it feels like you might as well be at the roulette table.
It's also a very well explored map, that being one of the ranked map pool maps as well. So it's much more difficult to surprise your opponent on that map than, let's say, on Golden Heights or any of the custom maps that we play in this tournament. So that could also be part of the equation for Beastie. He doesn't want to go for that very standard common Dry Arabia game. He probably wants to prioritize the maps where he can come in with a slightly surprising game plan to catch Vortix off guard.
And this does mean that, you know, Vortex, we did go through, I think Holy Island was his other home map, right? Like, he won't be able to pick the English. The Rus were banned for both players. The interesting thing is, like, HRE was banned away from Beastie, but I think Vortex had his Mongols banned away, if I'm not mistaken. So it's kind of an interesting flex there. Beastie understanding that, you know, I think Beastie does believe Mongols is like the go-to pick for this map. He'll feel like he has the edge, and the English pick was somewhat predictable out of Vortex.
Horseman opening over here for Beastie. On the other side, we saw a dock coming up for Vortix. Now, the dock wasn't directly seen by Beastie, but I think one of the things that Beastie could have seen going that close to the TC is that Vortix was on the straggler trees. That should give him a clue that there is a dock coming up, and as much as there are walls over here, it may still be difficult to protect this dock in the long run for Vortix.
Yeah, he maybe could have like went a little bit wider and left room for a Rax if he feels he's threatened by it. But to be honest, you don't need it, right? If you go for a Rax, that's an extra abundance of wood you've thrown away. So that's a delayed feudal time instead. And then on top of it, if you do just get feudal a bit quicker, you can just push out 1 archer ship, and all of a sudden you don't need a Rax to defend this extension.
Yeah, and Beastie knows that there's a dock up there. He's already sending out the horseman, also sending a villager forward. Now that's a lovely detail, because the horseman will struggle to get through those walls initially, especially with 2 villagers being there to repair, and even having bows to fire with. But when you build a tower out there, it's a different story, and that's what Beastie's aiming for.
Now, did Beastie scout it when the walls were being made is my thought process, because I'm wondering if the real reason he's bringing a villager out is because he's like, let me get my lumberjack axe out, I've got this, and he's going to get the bad news if that's the case. I think his calm was around the area, but I'm not sure if he scouted out the way that this has been walled. Yeah,
that's a lovely wall out there for Vortix, and so far, we might just see a dock coming up here for Beastie, because I think this is the first time he saw that dock. And yeah, there it is. It's actually a dock, not a tower. And this is the annoying detail out there. The English villagers can just fire back on those horsemen, and sure thing, Khan can also shoot, but it's not like the Khan does a lot of damage to Dark Age villagers anymore.
No, but in fairness, the villagers don't do that much damage either, right? You have to think that this is 3 damage going through on a unit that has double your HP pool. And you're taking, I believe is it 1 damage at the stage, goes up to 2 at feudal. So it's actually kind of similar. It's not that far off, just an even exchange. But now with more horsemen arriving, you know he's eventually going to break through. And the annoying thing about this dock, Lidakor, is it's a blocker. Beastie can now fish safely himself, but he can combat you under your own dock while having a safe eco behind it.
Now, the detail that's worrisome here for Beastie is that while he's doing this, he's investing a lot of resources into Dark Age. You look at his resource bank, it's empty. On the other side, Vortex is going into Feudal Age. He started out with his dock much faster, he's getting a faster return of investment, and because of that, he's going to beat his opponent to Feudal. And once he's up in Feudal, it's a different story, because you will have a combat ship out to protect your dock with.
And I'm not sure this is going to be quick enough. I think Beastie's been baited. The horseman dragged away like this, the fact that, you know, he had to pull back an injured one, might slow him down. Even if he gets through the wall, I'm concerned that he's now going to die to the first archer ship. Not to mention the fact that Vortix won't lose his villagers, because if you check that wood line, yeah, they're safe. There's no way in.
Yeah, those villagers will be idle for some time, but keeping them alive is just such a crucial detail here for Vortix. We've talked about this one in the first 2 games. He's just so good at optimizing things and really getting the best value out of every move he makes. Same thing over here. Many players would just say, okay, there is not much of a chance to save my villagers there, might as well just let them die, or, well, get the most out of them before they die. Not Vortix. He says, okay, I will do my best to keep those guys alive, because I need every single bit of advantage I can get.
And he's just understands his timing so well, right? 9 villagers rushing this up because he understands that archership needs to come out fast. Break of the wall finally occurs, but now with the tech up complete, this is not going to be enough horsemen. That dog's going to be too tanky. Even if you set it on fire, you know the villagers will now come back out to repair the damage.
Yeah, that's the thing. And with the con being away, you could even pull the villagers, get a couple of arrow hits on those horsemen. Even the villagers being pulled here by Beastie. Beastie knows his timing well as well. And look at that. Villagers almost sniping the horsemen. Just so pesky with those villagers is Vortix. He's actually pulling them out. Might try to snipe him, although he's going back home, it seems.
I think like he probably needs to hang around to repair just to be safe, but like he's going to snipe out. Beautifully done by Vortix, but however, that was a bit too greedy. The horseman is now going to punish him. I think he actually loses both villagers here, in fact. So Vortix kind of unnecessary losing them like this, and that means that if Beastie does touch up that dock enough to set it on fire, there's no way to stop it.
Yeah, that's a bit of a misplay out there by Vortix. Went a little too bloodthirsty. Looks like the building will be lit ablaze here. Villager is gonna be gone, yeah, but I think it's gonna be enough to set it on fire, right? Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, it's just like the problem with the archer ships is you saw it's kind of RNG. That second flurry of arrows, I think one of them touched. And those arrows, I think, if I recall correctly, it's like 5 base damage, and you have a cluster of 6. Against a unit that has 2 missile resistance at this phase, you're not going to kill it very effectively.
Oh, naval arrow slits coming in already for that dock. Makes it much more difficult for Vortix to keep his fleet alive. And the demo ship, it wasn't committed to try and set the dock on fire. Instead, it's just going to stay behind for the time being.
Vortix is pulling another villager, but it's unguarded. Beastie just found it. So another Villy was running out, and I think there's a villager has just been taken out.
Yeah, that's lovely game plan by Beastie. He knows fully well the dock is on fire, and he also knows that Vortix needs to send the villager to repair it, was waiting for it, caught Vortix off guard, and for the first time in this series possibly, there could be a lead up here for Beastie.
Yeah, because Vortix doesn't have enough damage on that dock to return the favor. Demo ship is at least going to get rid of the first sprint without. So not the worst of exchanges there, at least. And keep in mind, although Beastie is going to get like naval control eventually here, he doesn't have any fishing as it stands, or at least no active fishing. So this is going to block him out for a while. I love the fact that Vortix is camping that forever due to the fact that the fishing boats are healing any damage done.
Yeah, look at that longbow's coming in here, just being a little annoying behind the back of that wood line. There are some horsemen coming to deal with them, but it's an extra piece of investment that Beastie has to make for the time being. And as you said, it's not like he has a fishing eco. Horseman a little slow as well to turn around. Actually loses one villager here at the back of the wood line.
Yeah, but it's 2 longbows going down for it. Like, Beastie doesn't mind that detail. The thing that's going to be frustrating him is the fact that Vortix, despite the fact he doesn't have a dock, is technically winning on the Navy side. Beastie's trying to fix that now, with the first spring being pushed out, now demo coming alongside it. But speaking of the demos, it doesn't get the full impact. That's important, because now Beastie knows he can just beat this out. Vortix has no way of holding on anymore, not with the demo ship out.
Oh, and that's going to be a pretty nice demo, sinking the Hawk, and the other Hawk is going to sink the galley. So from that point on, Vortix is gone from the water. And looking at his placement on land, not a lot of things working well for him. He actually went very heavy on the stone. He wants a second TC, but I feel like Beastie is in such a good position now. Having map control, he's going to expand towards the hunt, and he can also be pretty annoying with those leftover horsemen.
Yeah, but he's still going to want to be the pressurer, right? He's still going to want to try to restrict the map, because we have to remember Beastie didn't go for the silver tree, right? I'm pretty sure I saw Yam back at home. I always forget that because we're so used to seeing one. So because he didn't have the threat of trade, Vortix, as an English player, can kind of smirk and say, I'm just going to stay. You need to force me off this map instead.
Ooh. Yeah, whoa.
That
could be a game ender.
Ambitious placement. Yeah, let's not get too frisky. I think Vortex needs to respect the horseman threat and just go for a very safe town center drop here. Instead, whoa, this is awesome. Look what he's doing. He's going for the deer closer to BC's base, and he's going to wall him off from being able to stop it. I mean, I've got to
nice
give that
little
to that. That was pretty smart. Like, a lot of players
Yep.
would have just accepted condensed TCs, but Vortix refuses. I love this. And now because he's going on the deer, he can get a pretty good castle age timing. You know, kind of similar to what we saw out of Beastie with the double TC play last game.
Yeah, it was a nice diagnosis from Beastie to know that the second TC would likely come up at one of the deer spots, knowing that Vortex will need extra food. Tried to push one of the deer spots, and he actually denied the TC there, but Vortex, with those walls, is going to set him up to place that second TC just in time. And as you said, with that food income, he could actually have a competitive castle age timing.
Could this... Okay, no. BC, he was walking that way. If he walks around here, okay, he does realize that's very important because that villager could have been insta-sniped by the town center as it completed, but instead, Beastie will start getting his outposts up. Beastie was also playing deer. This is important because with the fishing, it means that now he sees what Vortex's goal is, castle age. He just nods and says, I'm going to match it. In fact, I'm going to beat it because I have the fishing eco alongside the deer that you're also gathering on.
Yeah, it's so important that Beastie managed to keep his fishing eco alive. They were garrisoned in the dock for 5 to 10 minutes even. Probably not 10 minutes, but around 5-ish minutes. And now that actually pays off because that's a big eco lead for Beastie. And as you said, Beastie just says, okay, you want to go to Castle Age, hold my beer, I'm going to do the same. And he's also getting the little detail of setting that mining camp on fire, getting the little bounty. Might actually get some harassment going here on the gold mine too.
Yeah, and it forces a reaction, right? You have to build these lumbermen as Vortex, because it's not just the mining camp on the stone outcropping, it's also the lumber camp. Both of them are out of town center range, which means that Beastie can get paid. Beastie, by the way, is going to get paid in a different way in a second. Step readout now being built up. Vortex, meanwhile, is nowhere near ready for a tech up. He's being forced to invest into spearmen, and we also have to remember that because he went for a second town center, that's additional food requirements per minute going out of the bank.
Yeah, exactly. And once he depletes that one deposit of deer, he's going to struggle because remember that this is the only wood line he has got access to. There's a tower behind the other one, and there are horsemen roaming around. So a farm transition also is going to be a little challenging because of how deprived he is on available wood.
Now, Vortex will at least get some value long-term out of these spearmen, right? Because you've seen your opponents building horsemen. If he is teching up, natural transition should be in tonight. I would love to see Beastie prep racks, though. It doesn't work that great once Vortex arrives in Castle Age as well, because the men-at-arms in the English are better. But before they're there, you have this really strong timing where you essentially can just destroy the second TC.
Exactly. Those men-at-arms, they will just ignore the arrow fire coming out. They will shut down the eco, and they will make it much more difficult for Vortex to get to Castle Age. And given the fact that Vortex is still very low on food, there is a large window here for Beastie to do something, especially because he's even catching those longbows off guard for a brief moment.
It's like 1 or 2 of them before getting out. So just trying to milk the horsemen for what he can get out of them before they become completely irrelevant. It's also going to force Vortex to double down on this turtling. More balls going up, so he understands he has no way of winning this game in the intermediate. He needs to play for that late, as most English players often do.
And look at that Beastie going for a fast monastery out there as well. He wants to get those relics, he wants to get the sacred sites, very reminiscent to what Vortex has done in the previous game. You're down in villager count, or at least you're supposed to because you're up against 2 TCs. Reality is that the fish is offsetting that, but still, eventually the escalation in terms of economy for Vortex will be better, so he's going to try and offset that with the sacred sites and the relics.
Yeah, and the thing you got to keep in mind is, like, you mentioned that second TC Vortex has, it's not safe, right? It's kind of out there. He got forced to do this kind of gambling play that paid off, but it does mean that Beastie has an exposure point to press at. And if he can get in quick enough, he might be able to stop that eco lead from even being realized by Vortex.
For sure. In fact, as you said, that TC is so exposed that it actually raises the question whether Vortex wants to go for the white tower out there to defend it. But it's going to be difficult to get it up now because it's no longer horsemen raiding him, it's going to be lancers. And as you see, these town centers, you can garrison them, but they won't be able to last very long against men-at-arms or lancers.
And did he re-wall?
Oh, there's a hole. There has to be a hole, right?
No, there's not. No, it's a lie. So, like, the way this works is that you can delete the ends of the walls and you'll still be covered. It does look like a... Honestly, if you can't convince your horse to jump over that, you're probably not very good at riding horses, so...
Ooh, Khan could be picked...
He's trying as well. That's the best part. He's like, wait a second. Oh, so Khan goes down. He does at least use the armor arrow to minimize casualties on the exit. Cool little detail here from Vortex you've got to give credit for. he only kept 10 villagers out on that deer intentionally. Every new one spawning was rallied back home because he knew that raid was going to be coming.
Yeah, it's a nice little angle here by Longbows, although they missed the opportunity to snipe the Shaman coming up. And look at what Vortex is coming up with. Very similar to what Beastie has done in the previous game. He wants to play very greedy over here. King's Palace is going to be his Castle Age landmark.
So he saw game 2. Remember, Vortix was in that game. He was playing against it. He saw that build. And either there's 2 possibilities here, Lidakor. Either he has no short-term memory, or he thinks he can do it better than Beastie.
Yeah, seems like it's the latter case. Now, one thing to consider is that Beastie, unlike Vortex in the previous game, doesn't have a gigantic army that he can flood that expansion TC with, at least not for the time being. He is going to have great map control with the relics, and he's now building up crossbows too, but it's not like he's got anything that can destroy that forward town center with right now.
No, I think, like, from Vortex's perspective, he understands he's not getting on the map. So, like going 3 TCs is greedy, but it's going to allow him to get to mass farms in the Imperial Age eventually. So, like, what he's essentially done with this play is he's put the onus on Beastie to kind of end the game, right? Like, Beastie definitely has some big eco advantages, but the running risk now is that those deep water fish are eventually going to expire. All of a sudden, that eco count at the top that looks quite even Stevens is going to be nowhere near balanced. Instead, it's going to be Vortex with probably a 30-40 villager lead before you know it.
Exactly. And the key thing here is that, as you said, Vortex knew fully well that he was on the back foot. He was beaten pretty badly to Castle Age. Beastie has all 5 relics. Beastie has the water control. So at this point, he's playing greedy because he's like, okay, this is my only chance to get back into this game, and I'm hoping that Beastie can't punish me for that. And for the time being, Beastie is not playing aggressive, so that game plan might work out. Especially because Vortex is going a mass spearman over here, now mixing in some men-at-arms, and if you look at the army of Beastie, it's not like he has anything that deals with spearmen immediately.
And that's the cool thing, right? Is like, what Vortex understood is not just only does spearman solve the comp he's up against to a decent degree, it's the fact that because he's able to wall himself in like this, and because Beastie revealed that he was going mass lancers, it's not a quick kick, right? Like, these units are great at raiding, but you don't reach that point where you're going to kill the game and end the game very fast if there's walls in the way. If this was a men-at-arms push, Vortex would feel more panic, more pressure. But because of the long production time of Lancers, he understands that he's actually got a bigger window than he otherwise would have.
It's also the price you pay for those Lancers. It's much more difficult to build a mass that's sufficient to destroy that expansion town center, for instance. If this was a man-at-arms play, it would be much easier for Beastie to justify pushing that forward TC. Now, Beastie is going to play this one very passive, and he's going to be fine doing that because he's sitting on 5 relics and a sacred site. So, in fact, he's going to have a second sacred site out there, and he's going to force Vortex to make a move.
Yeah, because Vortex has this neutered army, you know, pokey spears and small spears we shoot from bows. That is literally it. He doesn't have a grand plan to deal with crossbows right now. He doesn't have a grand plan to deal with mass lancers. And also, with the mangonels being added in by Beastie, he's very confident that he can take a fight as long as it's not in Vortex's base.
Indeed. He's also going to have that mobility aspect, and look at that. Can he set it up on the hill? If he can reach those gold miners, that's terrible for Vortex. Wally, for the time being, will slow down the walls.
What walls? Are you going to build them again? Maybe rush this time, though. Double mango shot coming in. Vortex will back away. This is not going to last long, though. He needed a third layer of walls, but you mentioned that gold mine. They can reach. Mango's in, but not enough damage to kill them instantly. Vortex, however, has yet to pull back. Several villagers are going to be sacrificed, and now the Lancers can party in the base as well.
Yeah, this is where it gets scary. You can split off a couple of Lancers, head for the wood line. There is a lot of spears over here, and Vortex is hiding them. This could be a nasty surprise for Beastie, but this is a make or break for Vortex. Will take this fight. Mangonel fire, though, wiping out most of the spearmen in the first volley.
It felt like a bit of a whiff. There's still so many spearmen behind it. 25 remaining, made that close to 30. The Mangoes are the Lumen threat, but the problem he has is diving the TC, the attack speed aura. These are threats that Beastie doesn't want to show disrespect to, which is why you see him take his time.
Yeah, he needs to take his time. Those mangoes are so crucial. If the mangoes aren't there, this is an easy win for Vortex. He's got a massive flood of spears and longbows, but no response directly to those mangonels. Shaman also being mixed in by Beastie to kill those forces, and here it comes.
Spears. Looking to wrap around, going in for the pinch. A few of them should make their way past. Villagers with torches out as well, heading on the mangoes. Crossbows will have to snipe them out, but I don't think there's enough here to snipe them out quick enough. Mango's forced to retreat. Siege is going to be lost for Beastie. He needs to get more troops out here to defend with, but the body blocks come in. He can't get out. Even though he wiggles one mango away, he's going to sacrifice a lot just to retreat.
What a fight for Vortix. He wasn't able to get the second mangonel, but it wasn't even the point. By pushing the mangonels had to be pulled back so the spearman could just overrun everything, and Beastie, his army got almost wiped over there. He's lucky to get away with what he got away with.
He really is. Honestly, the mangonel was kind of causing issues. Everyone needed to cover themselves in butter and try to slide by. But then the knight started panicking. He has to sacrifice several of the religious units. Right, look at it. He's down to 4 shamans. I don't know how many he built originally. I think it might have been double digits or close to. Vortix has to be incredibly confident with this fight. And he manages to do it off the pack at the most basic unit. Spearman mass, add in a few villages, and you will set Beastie's world on fire.
I loved how he just hit the entire army in the middle of his base, lured Beastie in. He wasn't panicking when the walls were broken through. Beastie committed because he didn't see the whole army, and then Vortex just pushes out with 40 spearmen, 30 longbows, catches him off guard. Now, Beastie knows what he's up against now, so he's going to be more prepared, but there's a switch coming up as well for Vortex, a real meat shield coming in for his army. That is the men-at-arms from the English.
And that's the worry, right? Like, Beastie actually had this timing where he could have potentially went for men-at-arms, would have given away a deal on that second TC that never got stopped. Instead, now, Vortex, he's like, I've been beating your ass around with sticks and stones. Now it's time to get some steel.
And there's another factor to consider, the deep fish running out for Beastie. It's almost depleted, so this is where his food income is going to plummet. It was 1,000 a minute ago, 1,000 per minute. Now it's 700, dropping to 600. Sustainability is going to be a problem in the next few minutes. If he doesn't make something happen, he's going to struggle to rebuild an army again.
Vortex definitely on the clock to try and get out of his base. And, you know, this is another reason why sometimes when you see in the White Tower is he doesn't have a direct answer to this siege still. He hasn't built workshops. English are one of the most difficult civs to siege transition at Castle Age with, just because of the high price of those workshops. Means that he's going to actually have to find a kind of obtuse way of dealing with these mangoes. And you might have caught Beastie off guard once with that just divide full all-in moment. I don't see that happening twice.
Oh, me neither.
Beastie, can we fix this traffic jam?
I
Honestly, that mangonel was like, oh, excuse me. Oh, excuse me. No, can someone let me through? We've all been there. It's a bloody annoying moment.
Yeah, you know, it's the same let me in meme.
You know when you're like on the street. No. It's more like when you're on the street and you try to go left and the other person does the same, right? And then you just keep mimicking each other. You're like, bruh, can we just reset and decide who's going left and who's going right?
Beastie has gotten for the bounty upgrade, by the way, so that's a ton of resources he's getting from burning down those farms. Beautiful walls.
Does he know? He doesn't know, though. Beastie doesn't realize just how exposed Vortex is. Those farms are not guarded well at all. And now, Vortex with the spread out, forced to brace, enough lancers to hold him back. The Magos could just smash this straight away. In fact, they're going to go for the range pound on the backside. I think this time Vortex might be in a bit of a pickle, but still so many longbows to hold with. 42 hidden just off screen here. And with the front line already gone, Vortex may once again push Beastie back.
Yeah, nothing left to deal those mangonels with. It is going to be the front line gone for both sides, but Vortex doesn't have anything to deal with those mangonels now. Beautiful split formations, he does what he can, but he simply can't deal with those mangonels right now.
Yeah, he can't kill the mangonels, but he can kill everything around them. Like the micro, the staggered formations, several groups just being clustered and pulled apart is ensuring that Vortex is exchanging these longbows at a decent rate, right? Like, yeah, they're going to die to the mangoes, but if he gets rid of all the crossbows, this men-at-arms surge can come over the top and deal with the siege on their own. Yeah. But you know what? Screw that. He can't keep it going. I think he ran out of gold behind this, it would be my guess. It was a cute idea out of Vortex, but Beastie will turn it about, and it means that we get a 4th game.
Yeah, lovely play here by Beastie. He really exploited the fact that he had map control, and if you look at the overall resources coming in, that's the key detail. And he made this happen before he really ran out of deep fish, so he didn't really have to make that pasture transition that much. He finished the game before the timer really started ticking for him. Whereas on the other side for Vortex, was a cute start, and you really wonder how this game would have looked like if he doesn't lose those 2 villagers on the front, and he manages to keep that dock alive with them.